Okay, looks like I'm live again, hopefully without any issues today. Make sure that I can see that I did not get blocked anywhere, and so far so good. So I'm back for another day of Odinmade Hero. This live stream I do where I try and learn a game from scratch, one day at a time, from Casey Muratori over here, while he writes Handmade Hero. And I do it in the Odin programming language while he does it in C and C++. I don't have a preamble at all today, really. I just am glad because today is the most productive day I have had in a while. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's the most productive day I've had in code in a while. A lot of days lately have just been jumbled up by a mess of different things that make things feel really chaotic when, I'm like most programmers probably that just want to sit in their dark little cave and hack away on some code all day and not have to deal with the real world. But today was one of those fortunate days where there was no meetings, there was no people to see, no other things to do. Just get to sit at the machine and let it, let the machine give me a way to speak through it and express myself in these weird ways that make up the act of programming. But so yeah, we'll just jump right in and let Casey kick it off. We're still working on this movement code and trying to basically get the collision working such that we can glide along these walls and not get stuck on them. And yeah, it's been going well. Nothing crazy, but today's, I think, going to be more code than we've been able to write all week. It's been a lot of whiteboarding, or blackboarding now, because Casey has switched over to a black background, so that's good. No more having to deal with very bright white screens, so that's nice.
Okay, hello everyone and welcome to Handmade Hero, the show where we code a complete game live on Twitch from scratch using no libraries, no engines, no artificial colors or preservatives, none of that stuff in here. This is 100% organic computing at its finest. It commands a premium price at your local organic marketplace where there is a premium price on everything and the grocery bill is very expensive. You know the places I'm talking about, and those are the kinds of places you can find fine Handmade Hero code products. And speaking of which, if you are one of the people who has pre-ordered the game on handmadehero.org, please remember that you can follow along exactly with the code from today. It's day 49, so if you would like to grab that zip file, you can download with all the source code in it, find day 48 zip, and unzip that. You will be exactly where I am right now. And where am I right now? It's a very good question that you have posed to me. Obviously, sort of telepathically, because obviously I can't hear you right now, but in my mind, right, I'm receiving that question from you loud and clear. And basically, if you remember, we were at the point where we were saying we have to, I showed a very, very basic form of line intersection to sort of get intersections working in the game. And then I said we need to move up to the next level of complexity now in order to get better collision detection. And so we were at the point where we did implement some collision detection for him, but it was not particularly good. And so we need to start thinking about how to make it better. And one way that we need to make it better is we need to start handling things more robustly instead of making them infinitely thin. I talked about this a little bit yesterday. I'm trying to show a bug here that we should have. I thought I demoed it pretty well. There it is, where you can kind of sneak through thin situations. I'm also wondering what happens when it gets down there. We get this weird situation where we get in some kind of a weird hang situation. I don't know what's going on here, and I want to check it out to see what the problem is. So, aha, ha. All right. Why have we never seen this before? That's very bizarre. Wait, how is that even happening? Do you see what's going on here? We've got a min tile x of 1, a min tile y of 3, a 1 past max tile x of 9, which is fine, and then a 1 past max tile y of 0. What's going on there?
I feel like he must be about to discover this thing that I was talking about yesterday, where... What? Yeah, this is it. Where he does the recanonicalizing of the player's position, the player's new position, only after assigning the non-canonicalized version to the stored entity's position. And it makes sense that he's going to start looking at this more closely today, because that's actually the title of today's episode, Debugging Canonical Coordinates. But we'll see. Maybe there's something else going on.
What is going on there? How did the minimum of two values equal 3 and the maximum of two values equal 0? Methinks that we have a bug here, people. Because that should not be the case. Like, how is that possible, right? So someone's got a typo. Unfortunately, that someone's me, because no one else even has the ability to edit code on this machine. So honestly, it's really hard for me to sit around and pretend that someone else is at fault, because pretty much it's always going to be me. So let's see what the values are that we were putting in there before I continue talking on stream. All right, so let's see what we've got here. Our abs tile Y. Oh, snap. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we happen to be testing right at the wraparound point. Do you see what happened there? This is kind of interesting. Just goes to show you, wraparound is hard. Sometimes. Wraparound is hard. So what happened there is actually pretty interesting. So we've got our abs tile Ys, and the player has just moved off the bottom of the screen, which causes his Y coordinate to wrap to the top tile, right? He's going onto the top of the screen, right? The very top of the map. So basically, he underflows 0 and goes to 4 billion, which is exactly what we expect to happen, and that's fine. But when we do maximum of these two, right, it obviously picks this one as the higher value, right? And that's exactly what it should do, because it is the higher value. But then, when we add 1, it actually becomes a lower value than this, in a sense. And the reason for that is actually because the min tile X and min tile Y that we were using, right? What we wanted to know was not actually what the maximum value was between the things that we were going to. We actually wanted to know is just how far whichever one was the furthest from the min tile X. So I wonder what is a more stable way to do this computation such that we do not have that wraparound problem. That is very intriguing, right? And I feel like probably what we would want to do is something like say, all right, let's actually test the thing that we want to test, which is which one is the furthest from min tile X, right? So we would find out here, essentially, whichever one is the furthest from it. And the subtraction should do the right thing with regards to wrapping, I would think, right?
So let me figure out what he's doing here. The furthest from min tile X. Okay. Whether that's the new player position being calculated or the old one. Unfortunately, this means that we can't do all of this on one line. So we got to declare those there so that we can use them here. And now the code is much too wide. So we'll split it up. That's okay.
Because we know that these two are relatively close to each other, and so in theory, the subtraction would always work. I don't know if that's actually true. I have to think about that. We'll have to test that out, right? Because let's say that this guy was, was like 4 billion or something, and then min tile X was going to be. No, that wouldn't work either, because that would still produce that 4 billion value, and then that would be totally wrong as well. How am I going to do that stably? That's a very good question. So really, the problem too is we don't even know which one should be the minimum either, because we don't really know which one is technically. We just need to know that we need to visit all of the tiles, but we don't actually know what order to do them in. That's tricky. That is a tricky problem, and one of the kind that I'm not particularly good at. This is one of those this is one of those bit fiddly sorts of problems. What do I want to do here? It's kind of interesting. Oh no, where is the whiteboard? What hath happened? I must have closed it when we were doing all of our color fussing. So here it is. Let's go ahead and open that up. Hello, Krita. There we go. Oops. There we go. Okay, we're good. Of course, I still need to pick up the background color. There we go. Okay. So this is a very interesting problem that we have here. And I'm not entirely certain how to solve it. It's very, very, very interesting. I think what we have to do is sort of rebase our variables temporarily to sort of think about it in a different space. So here we are at 0, 0, right? And the player has moved off the bottom here. So we're looking at a situation where the player's starting position was something very low, like 0 or 1, something like that. And he moved to a position that's like 4 billion, right? So what we want to do here is we want to start at the 4 billion, and we want to add to get to the 0, right? And I guess we could say that what we want to do is always pick whatever the direction is that would be the shortest to go, right? Because we know that these are supposed to be close together, and so we always want to do the subtraction that would yield the lower of the two distances, right? So yeah, that's one way to think of it, right? So basically, if I had, if I'm going 4 billion to 0, or if I'm going 0 to 4 billion, I know that going from 0 to 4 billion will actually be relatively short if I go in the negative direction, or if I'm going in the positive direction, going from 4 billion to 0 will be relatively short because I'll just add 1 and I'll get there, right? Or if I was going to 1, I'd add 2 and I'd get there. So I need some convenient way of producing that that iteration type, right? So I need some way of saying what is the thing to start at, right, and what is the thing to finish at. And it needs to work on both boundaries. So it needs to also work when I'm at 4 billion and I move to 0, right? So I would suspect, let's think about this. So I would suspect that if I just took,
I think he's just going to say we're not going to wrap as a result of this issue. Or maybe he does come up with a solution, but then he decides it's not worth it or something. I'm not sure.
If I was to look at these and go, okay, if the difference between, like one way I could do it, and this is maybe a little bit cheesy, if the difference between the two values is greater than, that sort of halfway marker, so basically int 32 max over 2, right? If that distance between them is greater than that, then I know that I've wrapped around, so I could detect the case in which that occurs. I don't know if that's the best way to do it, because I'm trying to think if there's some way to just do it with operations that will directly yield the correct thing, because a lot of times with unsigned int, if you think about it long enough, you come up with a clever thing where you're just like, oh, okay, this always works correctly no matter which way I do it, right? So one way, let's see. So let's say, let's see what the cases are here. So let's say that I've got something like 0 to 1, right? I've got something like 1 to 0. I've got something like 0 to 4 billion, right? And then I've got something like 4 billion to 0 in terms of like interesting cases. So these are the normal cases, right? And that's where the min-max works just fine, because it just picks whichever is the lower and whichever is the higher and goes between them by adding 1. And then these are the ones that wouldn't work right now. So one thing that I could do is say, well, all right, what if I just always start at the location the player was? So I always start at like 0 or 1 or 0 or 4 billion or whatever. And then I just think of it as a problem of I just need to know whether to add 1 or subtract 1 on each iteration of the loop, right? I just need to know which one of those to do. And obviously, right, in this case, I would want to add 1. In this case, I'd want to subtract 1. In this case, I'd want to subtract 1. In this case, I'd want to add 1, right? So these would be add cases. These would be subtraction cases, right? So the question is, given these examples, what is the thing I could do that would produce that value, right? Like what would actually produce this particular thing? So like these guys are examples of if I do the subtraction, right? If I did the new minus the old, right? Then I would get exactly the sign of that result would give me which one I wanted to do, certainly in these cases, right? Because if I did 1 minus 0, that equals 1, right? And the sign of that is the direction I'd want to go. If I did 0 minus 1, which is this case, I would get the negative 1 in signed, which is also the direction that I want to go. However, in this case, if I was to do 0 minus 4 billion, 4 billion minus 0, I would get a plus 1, right? And in this case, if I did 4 billion, so it gets the opposite of the sign there. And so that doesn't really help me still determine what the sign is of the values that I'm going to. Same thing with like greater than or less than, right? Like I can't really use that, which is sort of just the same as a subtraction, right? I can't ask whether the thing I'm going to is greater than the thing that I was coming from, because in this case, that would be a problem. So what I can do again is this is the thing I keep coming back to that's definitely the easiest, is like just check to see whether the distance between the two things is that, and then flip the iteration order. But is there anything else I could do? Well, wait a minute. Is that actually the case? Well, no, yeah, is it? Because if I did the arithmetic, if I treated this, well, no, that doesn't really help.
I'm barely keeping up, so I guess it goes to show, because he's agonizing over it, and it goes to show, I think, that it's not totally trivial to figure out how this should work, because I thought that this one past business, adding 1 to the end of it would have alleviated this. And also, he only sees it because he's able to wriggle down, past the southern wall in the tile room, or tile map, in the room in the tile map, which I can't even produce myself, so it's not like I could even, recreate the situation. Actually, I figured it out. I tried for a while yesterday, and I wasn't able to do that, but there you go. And, that means this is definitely not... Well, actually, hold on. I forgot that I had just changed that, just to show that that was different. Now, I wonder if I can recreate it. I wonder if actually... It's impossible to recreate without that failure to recanonicalize the position in the right order. I mean, I'm trying. You can see that I'm trying, but I can't get into that little crack. How easy is it to reproduce if I go back to doing it in the wrong order? Pretty easy, actually. Huh. Like, I feel like this... Yeah, I just need to look at the math, I guess, to understand why. Well, maybe the reason why he's seeing the wrong numbers in there is just because it wasn't recanonicalized on the prior loop correctly. I just don't know. Because I thought this would have been fine. One passed. Well, it was in the Y direction, which makes sense because he's going down and then wrapping. Yeah, and then this would go... This would wrap over it. If min tile Y was less than one past, or greater than, I should say. If min tile Y was greater than one past max tile Y, it would just wrap around. Right? Yeah, I just don't know. My intuition still tells me that this is part of his problem, but I bet if I, had done what I said I was going to do several times now and set up a debugger, I could probably step through this and look at this loop and how these values are changing each time enough times while he's wriggling through that little crack that I'd be able to deduce the issue. But he's looking at the numbers there, and it sure seems like he's convinced that this is a seriously bad problem. It's not a bad problem if you just actually don't let him. I guess the issue is it's still a problem if for some reason you're able to wrap because there's no border there, like there's no wall. So this stops us. This properly has us colliding with the wall, but we still have the issue where if there is no wall there and you try to wrap around the whole entire game world, you're going to have a weird issue. But again, this is kind of a wild card there. If I don't draw a wall, what is it, like add wall, create wall maybe? Wall. Test wall. Huh. Well, it'd be like the tile value in here. The tile value we're storing in there once we... Yeah, right here. Set tile value is technically adding a wall at that spot in the tile map. So if I come in here and I just say maybe make all of these 0 for now. Oh, it would be... Well, this is for creating the doors. I don't think that's what I want. Actually, no, that's exactly what I want, right? We want everything to be a 2. Yeah, this is all I need to change. Okay. Been a while since I've looked at this. So we just make everything non-walled. Oh no, that had the opposite problem. Huh. Yeah, because this is saying that there's nothing there. Okay. So door, bottom, yeah. Let's just say there's no doors at the bottom of the room. I got my logic inverted there. So now if I go down here, I'm off the world, and I can't go back. I can go back. What? Interesting. I'm nowhere to be seen, but I can totally come back. Maybe. Well, now I can't. I was able to go back a few times, and now it's just not happening. So yeah, maybe there is something very wrong with the way that wrapping is being handled. Yeah, and I guess it makes sense, because otherwise he would have caught, just writing it out like this, he would have caught that, oh no, this is fine, this shouldn't be an issue. So can you record your inputs, then hot swap the code and replay the recording? We could do something like that. I just don't think it's, we could sit here all stream right and actually get a very in-depth understanding of what that is doing by doing exactly what you're saying. But he's going to sit here and work through it himself, right? And it's like the question for me, and this happens again and again on stream, is like, how deep do I go before just letting him carry on? Because he's going to start shedding some light on these things, right? And then I might spend an hour trying to understand something that he might explain in a way that helps me put it together in like less than 10 seconds, if that makes sense. Now, I'll probably retain the information better if I spend a whole hour looking at the problem and, like you're saying, you know, just go step through the code a bunch of times, changing it, tweaking it with the recording playing. I think we could get a better intuitive sense for what's going on, because it's the visualization aspect which really helps with that. But it's like a balancing act, because I don't want to spend too much time on it. I just want to make sure I understand the nature of the problem we're dealing with, even if I don't fully understand why we're running into it, if that makes sense. Because it's like, how far do we go on this? I think I'll probably run into my own problem like this when I go to like write my own game at some point, and I'm having to think about these types of things. And at that point, then we'll have no choice, right? But because the path is already set for us, and we have a bunch of other things we want to get to, you know, we're going to get through it and get to a place where we're just moving on to other things and tackling new subjects. But yeah, so we'll just see what I think he just winds up scrapping the wrapping, you know, and that idea of the map being the toroidal topology, or the donut, and we're just going to be blocked off on either end. And I guess the only reason why I would care to solve it with the toroidal approach is if I wanted to make a game map that was like that, right? And it would, yeah. So if and when I did such a thing, then I would really care about understanding this problem well. But I think he's going to explain it well enough for us to just get a general sense for what it is we're dealing with here, and then we can just move on.
I don't know. So I guess I'll just treat it. I guess I'll just do the simpler way to do it for now. But this bears some thought, because
and the other thing too is like, look, if he's struggling with this problem a little bit here, then it's a bit more of a not to I'm using this word because he just wrote it out, I think, but it bears, it would be a difficult, God, I don't know what I'm trying to say now. If he's struggling with this as much as he is, just trying to, you know, think through the right way to solve it, I am going to have that much harder of a time building a good intuition of how to solve it, even by hacking through it and you know, doing some looped live code editing while tweaking things. And I still might not get to the place where he's already at, you know, because I feel like he's already picked up on an issue, and I can't even totally tell what the issue is. But Anyway, I've gone on too long about it at this point, but I think you get the idea.
I feel like if we spent some time on this, this would actually come out to be something relatively clean that would not involve a bunch of checking about the wrap point, right? I feel like we should be able to do this. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, wait a second, though. You know what? This might work. Because 4 billion minus 0 in signed would actually come out to be -1, right? And 4 billion minus, I'm sorry, 0 minus 4 billion in signed. Okay, all right, so we got to check this out. Let's look at this. I'm sorry, I know this is probably not the kind of thing that interests most people on the stream, but you know what? Sometimes I'm here every night. Sometimes you just got to go with, you just gotta bear with me. So here's what we were doing, right? And that's not really any good. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say let's nuke that for the moment. And so I'm going to say, all right, we've got a min tile x, and the min tile x is just, or sorry, I should say, well, we're going to still call it min tile x, even that's not what it's called, because we'll leave the loop the same, but then we'll change it after, assuming this actually works at all, which I don't know if it will. So what I want to do here is say, okay, right, I'm going to start wherever the player was, and I'm going to go to wherever the player is going. So actually, you know, I guess I will change the loop, because I got to change it anyway for the other thing. So we'll say start tile x, and then we'll say 1 past end tile x, and that's going to be whatever the new player position is, like so. There we go, new player, there we go. And then we just need we need a delta x and a delta y, right? And the delta x and the delta y are basically going to be the sign of these values, right? So what we need to do is say whatever the sign of, if I was going from the start tile x, you know, to the end tile x, or vice versa here, like so. Start tile y, like that. And so then the only kind of iffy thing about it is just if they are both the same, right? That's the only thing that's kind of annoying, because I can't actually. It wouldn't actually get anywhere when I do the add. I suppose that wouldn't actually quite work. So you know what would be a little bit better is if we did this loop a little differently too. So if I could just say, if I could just do it like this and say, okay, what we're going to do is say we've got this, and then we're going to do this loop, and this is going to be a while, right? So okay, there we go, while not equal to the last one, right? So yeah, we'll do it like that. And we'll increment it there as well. Well, I guess that's actually got to be a plus equal since we're doing a delta direction thing. So that doesn't really give me a place to put it. So I guess this is just going to actually be this. There we go. And we'll have to check it manually. So if abs tile y equals max tile y, or I should say end tile y, then break, else increment. There we go. Okay. That's what I actually need to do there.
Okay. I'm definitely not keeping up with him at this point, but basically he decides to throw this away. And now we're going to start off of the original position, X and Y. And then 1 past the end of the new position after it's been calculated based off the, you know, trajectory we're going in with, you know, the velocity and the acceleration. And then the difference is just the difference between those two. That all makes sense. But now the structure of this is all different. And it's going to become an infinite loop. And I guess I'm not quite sure why he is structuring it this way, but just to avoid possibly, and he still has that inner 4 for now, so I guess I'll just leave that alone. But to avoid any issue with me just totally producing the wrong thing here, I'll do it this way too. And then, actually, is that where that loop starts? Yeah, okay. So over here, we say if the absolute tile y that we are on is at the end of the new player's position, that's when we break. Otherwise, just add 1 to abs tile y. Did I not name that right? Oh, it's one past end. Or no. Well, we haven't changed the loop. No, he just didn't. I don't think he referred to this correctly. Or maybe he does mean the end tile Y. Where did that go? This should probably be one past. But then this isn't here. So he's probably just going to declare it up top. Except signed integer overflow is undefined behavior in C and C++. Yeah, maybe that's the issue he's going to run into. I don't know. I just know that he does. I'm pretty sure he changes course away from having a world that wraps. And so it's probably not worth getting too tangled up in it. But there's something to be learned here, right? And that's what I'm trying to kind of pull apart.
So basically what we do is we just say, all right, we're going to start here, and then we're going to go until we hit that end tile, and we wanted to make sure that we actually process the end tile, and if we don't, we'll go ahead and break out of it, right? But this is going to have to be delta y. Here we go. And this is, why did I, yeah, what did I, yeah, okay. So then I can do the other one exactly the same way. So I'll do that.
Oh, I didn't catch that he did declare this up here. So up here, I think all this work may be for nothing essentially, but that's okay. I want to understand what he was trying to do here before I just, you know, blow past it and we move on. How is that undeclared? I thought oh. I guess he has not. I'm just going to get rid of this because this is just not how we're going to do anything anyways, so. Min, well, this is probably going to be start. Yeah, that makes sense. And then this is going to change the same. So actually we can comment that out. And then over here, add style X is going to be start tile X. And then we jump into the nested loop. And so far so good.
I'll do this way. And I'll do the exact same thing in here for this loop. So we'll just keep going until we hit that end, like so.
Dang it. There we go.
Right. So now we've got it, so we'll just do, okay, we'll go through all of them, and we'll stop when we hit the end tile X. I like that's a little nicer regardless, because then it's not, we don't have to do one past end just to make it so it fits in a nice for loop. So there we go. And now, I need to actually compute these things, obviously. So in order to compute them, I'm doing a subtraction here of end tile X, yeah, minus start tile like so. And so I want to see what the subtraction actually does for me. So let's take a look. Min tile Y is actually supposed to be start tile Y, start tile X. There we go. Okay, so let's set a breakpoint here so I can take a look at what's going on here. So when our dude comes in, we've got an old player P and a new player P, and let's see what those actually are. I don't, wait, but the dude isn't moving. Why are we getting this kind of craziness? That's a bit odd, wouldn't you say? Oh, because it's the first time it's been recanonicalized? That's a bit odd. Don't you think? Do you see what I'm seeing? Why is it, why is the X and Y value 5 and 5? Like, how did that even ever get set to 5 and 5? This is interesting. Today is becoming a bit of a cleanup day. What is that? That's a breakpoint? Is that what that is there? Yeah, I didn't even know that it showed me those there. I guess that's because this is 2013.
I keep speculating, but is this, you know, the issue right here, right? He's got this swapped. But also I think there might be something else going on just buried inside of the tile code that's messing all of this up.
I don't have 2013. I have 2012 at work. All right, so I want to see what's going on there when we initialize that player. So why is he coming in with such a... because he's been set to that. Why is he set to 5 and 5 as his offset? That's not a canonical coordinate at all. That's just bizarre. All right, so get rid of that. That must be some holdover from something old.
Okay, yeah, maybe not. That probably is something that just kind of got leaked into there when that, what was it, add player code, actually. Is it even in the tile code? Add player. Is it initialize player? Initialize player? Yeah. Well, do we even need to initialize it to 0? I guess for explicitness, we can. So that wasn't it.
Cool. So let's try that again. Now we're at least in a much better position here. All right, so we have the start tile X, and this is what I expected to see now. We have the start tile X and the end tile X, end tile Y, and those are what we would expect. So now we would expect to compute no deltas in this case, which is the case that I was prepared for in why I want to do the breakouts this way. So basically what happens is we immediately break on both of them, and we're done. So we only do that one test, which is what we wanted. So now if I do something a little bit more, like a little more relevant, so let's say I'm going down here and I do that. Now I can set a breakpoint while he's actually moving and take a look at what he actually does. Okay, so we go start tile X and start tile Y and end tile X, end tile Y, and now we should get, oh, you know what though I did forget to do? I forgot to just take the sign, which is all I actually wanted here. All right, so let's try that again. Where are we? Where was that? Okay, so what I want to do here is just do sign, which I never remember. I almost never call that on integers. This is not my normal thing. What's the C++ sign bit? I don't want the C++ one. I just want the regular one. Let's see. Well, we'll take a look here. I was hoping just the regular one. Okay, so it is just sign bit. I can call that regular. I didn't want to use some crazy C++ness, but that's all I actually wanted. And that's a trivial operation to do, right? It just has to look at the high bit to see whether the high bit's set. So I could actually do that myself if I wanted to. In fact, maybe I just will. I mean, I could just shift it down, right? Yeah, I could shift it down, that might make sense. So I'm just going to do it this way because that's a little clearer to everyone else. So let's say sign of or something like this. Here we go. And that will be in here. And that should be totally in line.
Well, I'm not sure what that looks like in Odin, but basically if Mr. Intrinsic in chat is right, then this in C and C++, right, is going to be, it's going to produce undefined behavior when you're subtracting. Well, I mean, I guess it's not. He's doing it in unsigned and then getting an int out of it. So maybe that's actually gonna be fine, right? Because he's doing it in unsigned. All of these are unsigned, and then the result produced out of this signed, getting the sign of that should be fine. So maybe that's actually not going to be an issue here, if I'm not wrong. But now, let's see, is it going to bring up the right thing? Nope. Why would it? Make me do this every stream. Let's go over here and see if the Odin docs will bless me with a built-in or something. Sign of, sign assign at element. Well, there's worth a shot. I guess we'll try one more thing. That is whether the Discord is going to have an answer buried somewhere. Get sign, get the sign bit. It looks like we can just do, well, yeah, that makes more sense than thinking so hard about it that I need to get like a built-in or something. I'm just gonna do, well, What does he do? Because getting the sign of it is just going to give him whether it's positive or negative, and then he's assigning that to an int. I guess I don't understand what he's doing here exactly. The C function was named signBit. It looks like Odin has math.signBit. Math.signBit only seems to do floats. I guess I missed that somehow. I guess I only looked for like sign of. But yeah, that's a good point. Sign bit. I saw him looking for sign of at first, and I guess I just didn't see that he started looking for sign bit. I mean, would it be the worst idea to convert the thing to a float or cast it to a float and then ask for the sign bit? The answer that I saw in the Discord was literally just this, you know, ask if it's greater than or equal to 0, right? And, you know, if it is, it's 1. If not, it's -1. And I guess this was supposed to be, well, that doesn't make sense, actually. Whoops. Because the delta x and y should be the difference between. I guess it can only be a max of 1 tile. Well, that's not true, because if the velocity was fast enough, we could zoom right over 3 or 4 tiles. So, yeah, I should just see where he goes with this. And this is what I did. I guess I was still on the docs there. But yeah, just ask if it's greater than 0, you know, after you do the subtract. And then if it is, then, you know, we're positive. If not, we're negative. But would that always produce the same result as this, right? Yeah, you'd have to like cast the result of this subtract to an int and then to a float and then back out to an int. Well, no, you wouldn't have to convert it back out to an int. You would just get true or false back. libc.signBit might do integers. I don't know the deal with Odin libc. Yeah, I'm not sure I want to start inviting pain and misery by calling something off libc. It might be something where it actually does work out of the box on Windows, right? And then I go to try and run the thing on Linux or Mac, and I guess I could test the Mac. Actually, I could test on Linux too, because I could just try and build the thing on my Steam Deck. That's another thing on my to-do list, is to start programming Odin on the Steam Deck. But yeah, so I don't know. Let's just roll with this for now. I don't know to do. Maybe switch to math.signBit, and I guess that would, like I said, look like this. And then back out. Well, yeah, you would just compare. What does it mean for you to get out true or false? If it's true, it's positive. If it's false, it's negative. Does not equal 0. I don't know. It might just be clearer to use this here, the way I've already written it. Not sure.
We'll check out to see if it is signBit, and that will be for int32. let's see, value, and sign bit value. Okay, so, oops, I said sign bit, sign of, there we go. Ambiguous call to overloaded function. Oh my, there are quite a few of them there. Oh, I can't actually get the sign of just a regular value. I wanted just the sign of the regular value. I guess I'm gonna have to do that myself, it looks like, unless I'm wrong about that. I just want sign integer. I thought there was a standard one for it, and it's escaping me at the moment, but I was quite sure that there originally was. At least I thought there was, but I guess not. I guess not. Someone on the stream will tell me later. That's usually the way that it works, when I forget one of these things. All right, well, I guess I don't get to know that, but I feel like the compiler, at the very least, should be able to do it pretty easily. Yeah, all right, well, let's take a look at what it does here. So if I were to say if value is greater than 0, then it's 1, else it's -1.
So he literally just winds up doing what I just did here, which is good enough for me, right? Like, I don't need to think so hard about something. But I was just looking at the Discord while he was doing that, and not too long ago, there's somebody in here saying that there is a sign. But I don't know. Math.sign. Yeah, there's just regular sign. It only works on floats as well. But there you go. Then it gives you a float back. Requires what? Oh, the result must be handled. So it's between this, right? And we're redeclaring it. And so when we go to use it later, you know, this is going to be a float that we get back. So we'd have to convert it to an int. Like, is there a danger there that we're not going to get the integer back that we expect when we call sign on a float? And it doesn't look better, right? It doesn't look better.
Right, that sort of thing. Of course, I also would like to know, I don't really care what happens at the 0 case. Maybe I would say that if it was at 0, we'll also call it 1. So I have a tiebreaker in there, right? Because it could be exactly 0, in which case there is no sign. So I don't know. So I want to see what the compiler produces for that. I'm a little bit interested to see, actually. All right, so let's take a look here, though, and just make sure that that's working at all as a first step. So that should still produce 0. Or wait, no, sorry, it should produce 1, which is perfect. No problem there. And let's keep going. So if I go ahead and do this guy, now I should be able to, let's see, there we go. So start tile x, start tile y, start tile x, start tile y. I will say it's a little odd. I want to see something else here. Why? It's still a little confusing. Like, this doesn't make sense to me. I feel like we have another bug here as well. It's definitely a debuggy kind of day. I think today's just going to be a debugging day. We don't normally do that on the stream because I kind of go through things quickly and we don't have time to really stop and think about things. But so why, if I was moving my guy down, right? Because, like, you know, if I run this, the guy's going downward. I guess if I set the breakpoint right when he jumped back up to the top, maybe, but I'm going to make sure that that doesn't happen now. So I'm going to set that breakpoint while I can see exactly where he is and exactly where he's moving, right? But even that jump up the top, that should just be a memory store, so that wouldn't even show up that way. So I want to see what these values are, right? Start tile x. So how is the end tile x?
Okay, this has got to be this bug. Every single time you see something weird, I'm like, it's this bug. And then it turns out to actually maybe be related, but I can't tell for sure. It's got to be this. It's got to be that he didn't order this properly. I'm going to die on this hill. Yeah.
4.
Well, I mean, I hope I called it. I'm going to wait for him to confirm it. I don't know for sure that that is the issue, but it sure as hell seems like it, because he's just doing it out of order. So when it comes back around, that would explain why he's getting these funky values out.
Like, how is that happening? Why is this X value 4? Who is doing that, right? Because the guy's not moving anywhere in X. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me that would happen. I want to see what's happening at the top of this function. Okay, so let's see. DDP, what's DDP? It's 0.
And that right there makes me feel as though it's not actually this issue, because why would the X be changing? To me, it seems like only the Y should be screwed up. But then again, yeah, no. When it's the only bug that James knows, then every bug Casey finds is that bug. Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing here. I know, because I have to be right eventually.
-1, that's exactly what I would have expected it to be. So we come through here, we do our length squaredness. There we go. We got our 1.0. We multiply by the player speed. We add in. Well, that's actually totally fine, right? Because that's a very, very small X number, right? That's like, you know, 0.00004 or whatever. So that's totally fine. Maybe I was just misreading it before. So new player P. New player P, old player P. So old player P already has an X of 4.1 actually in it. Which doesn't, so how big was a tile map on a tile on a side? Maybe I'm just like forgetting my old, so a tile side in meters is only 1.39. So you should never be able to have an offset of 4. That's like totally not allowed at all, right? So we've got some,
Nope. I shouldn't start. Just see where this goes, James. See where it goes.
bugs to deal with here. So let's actually, I'm just going to straight up step through the code directly and figure out what's going on here, because we have some bugs lurking, at least one, probably more, lurking in our code, and I think the most important thing to do, by far, before we go any further, would be to get rid of them. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the startup code here. I guess I'll take a look at what happens when we actually initialize a player and see what happens in there. Okay, so let's go ahead and run the game. And when I initialize my guy, I want to see what his situation is, right? Entity. And interestingly enough, when we do get entity with that entity index, I'm assuming that we were clearing, but we could double check that as well. So when we start, that all looks totally reasonable. The offset is 0, which is exactly what I would expect. And so let's see what happens here. We go through his controller stuff, and that nothing else will happen here, which is exactly what we would expect because no other controllers have said anything. The camera is following this entity, so it's going to go ahead and take his Z value. It's also going to do a subtraction here to see whether it needs to adjust to follow him. It does not, so that's all fine. And let's see, we don't actually have, is entity even defined in this scope? I don't even know what that's actually showing me at the moment. Anyway, so we're going to go ahead and draw the bitmap. We do this stuff. We draw everything, which is good. Go ahead and draw the tile map. Nothing particularly interesting there. Oh, this is the entity I was looking at. So we go ahead and we're going to do... So entity index 0, we actually shouldn't ever draw. That's the null entity. So we don't even have to actually loop over that entity. I could make that just loop start at 1. The entity exists will prevent it from happening, but something to note. So all right, when we're in here, here's our guy again. He still has an X. That's what we expected. So that X is totally correct, and no problems there. So that's all good. So I suspect that basically... Oh, you know what? You know what I just realized? This may be the bug that we... Yeah. Yep. So this could actually be this right here. I forgot to fix this typo. We talked about it in the forums briefly. It's one that we had to do. So we're supposed to reconicalize before this. And also, this redoubles my previous to-do about wanting to take care of the reconicalize problem, which maybe we'll do as well tonight.
I got something right. I did it. It was that issue. Or at least partially, because there might be other things going on here that I can't see, but and apparently he was already aware of it. He just didn't remember to immediately address it when kicking this day off. So there you go.
So yeah, okay. So now that we've got that straightened away, because one of the problems, right, with that reconicalize thing is I sort of said we'll deal with that in a bit because I didn't really want to go fussing with it too much because we're really not.
And in case he forgets this other detail, and I also forget it because, you know, we get sidetracked on other stuff. Entity exists, this right here. Well, I guess I don't need to change that, right? Because I'm going to go over the whole list of entities in the game state, and this is going to catch it. right? Because if our first entity that we add doesn't ever exist, then it's just a needless loop, and it probably doesn't matter. I guess you could just do, like, yeah, we could do this. Start at the first, take the rest, and I think that probably alleviates that. Just so we're not doing that extra pointless loop. I wonder if this will even work, because we're in the middle of changing this stuff around right now. But I just want to make sure that, like, when it actually goes and iterates through the entities, yeah, that's all broken, but it didn't break the code starting at the first entity. And at our first entity that we add, I guess it's not going to be the player, but it's going to be like the very first. Well, no, yeah, we haven't added any of the walls or anything like that as entities yet, so it would just be this player that wouldn't show up if I did that wrong. Okay.
Sure what we're going to do with a bunch of those things yet. It means you have to type that recanonicalize, which is just kind of error prone, right? And it's not good. So let me go ahead and get us back now, because I think what happened is basically when I moved the guy over here, it was never recanonicalizing his position, so he was constantly offset way over from where he was, right? So now when I do this again, I think we should see like a better, we should see a much better set of pieces of tile information here. 5, 3, 5, 3. Perfect. That's what we expect to see. Most of the time it should be in the same tile, and there we go with our deltas, delta 1.
Actually, is my stuff just busted for other reasons? Was I not doing this right? Because it looks like he's able to walk around just fine, and I cannot. I'm not sure what I'm getting stuck on. What else did I mess with here that could be explaining this? I'm just gonna get rid of this, or maybe move it out like that. Nothing else in here changed, so I guess I don't understand why my stuff is now broken in this other way.
Delta 1. Okay. So there we go. So now he's doing his thing. Let's go ahead and see if I can break us again. So I gotta get through here, like so. Come on, you can do it. There's bugs in the collision detector. Come on, I know you can do it. We know there's a bug. The collision detector is a little too good right now. We want it to be a little bit worse than it is so that we can glitch through it easier. Come on, I can't demo the glitching if you don't let me get through there. Come on. All right, you know what? We're just gonna make a door. We're just gonna flat out make a door there. That's what we're gonna do. It could also be that now that we've fixed that problem, we're iterating over the walls better, right? It could have been that that problem was also causing us to not iterate over the doors properly, over the overall the tiles that we should have been, and we were missing them. So that's why I was able to glitch through it so easily.
Okay, there you go. So that's exactly what I was trying to say earlier, however wrong I may have said it, or maybe I said it in a different way. But that's kind of what I was thinking, right? Is that because the canonicalization was not happening correctly, that he was just wriggling past where he should. And so it's not that the collision detection was off enough that he was able to funnel through that sliver, but that could still be the case. In fact, it probably is the case. Jimmy's so smart. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it just means that I'm keeping up is all that means. And I forgot to turn this back on because he was looking at the inside of the watch window there, and I didn't want the chat blocking things.
I'm pretty sure we could still glitch through it if we tried, though, because like I said, the collision detector currently I think still is kind of buggy, but yeah, it may have been that bug was what was allowing me to do it so easily because it wouldn't check the right tiles, and so we were able to get through it. Well, I want to test my wrapping solution. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to force there to be a door there, and I can do that in the thing that creates the tile code. I can just straight up say, you know what, guys, there's always a door in the downward direction because hey, I want there to be. So frankly, it's just like, okay, oh, you know what I could do too? I could just say, you know what, there's always a door. It's like, surprise, no one gets to close anything. Oops. That's the opposite of what I want to do. My bad.
I did the exact same thing. I'm not alone.
Right. What I want to do is come down here and reset it to 1. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay. So now if I come down here, I should be able to trigger the case, and we can actually test it now. It looks like it was not quite working there. So what I need to do is just go, all right, what can I do here? I need to set a breakpoint that's basically conditional on that, so I'm just going to go ahead and write that in so I can take a look at my delta case where I will do the wraparound. So
I guess I did not see... Okay, first of all, this is not one past end anymore, because he's not adding 1. So for some reason, I just copied that totally wrong. Get Discord out of here so I don't have so many windows. So this is just going to be entile x and y, and that makes this not look so ugly as well. But I'm doing something about this wrong. I must not be using the delta x and y, and he is somewhere. Or maybe not. Oh yeah, he is using it. Yeah, okay. That is definitely my problem. Right. Because I just added 1 here. Dumbly, very dumbly. That was the whole reason we were calculating those. I don't know why I threw those away. Our types are mismatched. Oof. Yes, of course. Okay. Oh, God. How do I want to do this? So I ran into this issue a good amount with Zig, where adding ints and unsigned ints together kind of, and having to do that for control flow of any kind, or just calculating values from adding them together, you kind of run into this weirdness. Like if I convert a negative integer to a U32 like this, I don't know that that is going to produce the result that I want, right? Because then it would, like if this was -1, if delta y is -1 and I cast it to a U32, I think it's going to give me just a 1 back, or maybe not. Or at least when I tried to do it in Zig that way, it wouldn't work. I guess I can just try here and see if that has the desired effect. But yeah, no. So that's a problem. And, you know, basically the way that I would handle that, it's really gross. I'd have to be like, if delta x is greater than 0, basically if it's positive, then you just add 1 and you do the opposite otherwise. But I don't like that because that's 4 whole lines of code that I feel like I should be able to do with just 1. So yeah. And now I'm stuck. So that does fix the issue, I'm pretty sure. And I'll just verify that real quick. But how would I do this cast, or what's like the order here that I could do things such that I don't have to do... Well, actually, we're still busted. So there's something else going on. Maybe it should be greater than or equal to 0, because that is how we're calculating delta x and y. Maybe that's my problem. Nope. I've done a bad thing, and I don't know what it is. You know, it sure seems like this is actually having the exact same effect as just doing the cast. uint cast -1 equals uint max -1 usually. Again, undefined in C and C++. Yeah. So that's why Zig then handles it the way that it does, right? And that's probably why we're running into these issues here. But he's doing it. Okay. So maybe I can make sense of this, and the reason why he's not seeing it is just because the end result is different. But still, that doesn't explain why this doesn't work. It tells me that something else is wrong. With the logic here.
So I can take a look at my delta case where I will do the wraparound. So basically what I'm going to do here is say, you know, something like if end tile, or if end tile y is greater than end tile x, I'm sorry, end tile y is greater than start tile y, then I'm going to just want to break right there, right? We'll just stop right there. So I'm just going to set a breakpoint on that. And this is just something I like to do a lot of times. I'll just write some code in that breaks on the case that I actually care about, which is like right there. And then I can just go ahead and look at what happens. So the start tile, right? End tile, exactly what we thought was going to happen, right? We're going from 0 to 4 billion. So we produce the delta x of 1 and the delta y of -1, which, hey, is exactly what I wanted to have happen, surprisingly enough. So it turns out the wraparound arithmetic is totally what you want. So what was the problem there is really the question. What was the problem? So we do these tests, and that's fine. And then what do we actually record as the entity, as the new player position? That's correct. That's all pretty much what you expect. So yeah, that seemed like it worked exactly right. So what was the problem? Why did we have a problem with not seeing where the guy was afterwards, right? Because if I'm not mistaken, where's our dude, right? Where's our dude is gone, which seems undesirable, to say the least. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and say, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and break into the renderer and say, where'd my dude go, right? I don't know where he is. He should be here somewhere. So let's find out. First of all, let's find out where the camera is, because that's interesting, right? And then we can figure out what the diff is. So what's the diff? What is the diff? The diff between the camera and the guy is -9 and a gigantic y value. So the camera does not appear to have properly caught up with the dude, which seems a little odd. Oh, right. Yeah. So this is also going to have to get upgraded now to handle the wrapping, right? Or moving the camera to handle the wrapping. But wrapping's complicated. You gotta have your stuff together. I wonder if allowing wrapping was a bad idea. I guess for educational purposes maybe it isn't, because you get to see me have to go through all this stuff. But it's crazy how much stuff you have to think about extra. You can't just cheese out. Right, so I forgot that we basically haven't done much with the camera. What I'd really like to do with the camera here is do something more along the lines of search for the closest camera point that we want to view, which would be something that would be generated along with the world. But in the interest of doing something more straightforward, I guess what we'd rather do here is say, if the camera's supposed to be basically every 17, maybe we just do a divide of that absolute tile for the guy, and we just set the camera to be wherever that actually is, right? For now, because that would always work. And that may just be, you know, a better way to leave it in there. Something that basically just says, what's the closest centered screen for the dude, and set it to that, right? So of course 17 doesn't evenly go into 4 billion. So at the wraparound point, that's pretty interesting. At the wraparound point, you wouldn't really even be able to quite do that, right? Because if you think about it, this is turning into a much more interesting stream for me. Probably not for everyone else, but so if you think about it, we've got this situation.
I'm interested. But it's painful. So yeah, I mean, there's something else going on here with my code that is busted for whatever reason, because he's able to skate around here, and I just kind of move over to the next tile and get stuck right away. That's no good. And I can't see why. Which is even less good. Well, I mean, if these produce the same thing, right? Do I care about leaving this in the correct way? I feel like that logic has to be right. But it's turning out not to be. Yeah, it's literally the same. Almost like it sees no wall at first. So it lets us go into that tile that's right over. Oh. What? So I can go to the right, but the second I try to go to the left, I get stuck. Which makes sense, because if we're trying to go negative, right? Okay. Yeah. Going negative is just blowing things up. So I can go up and to the right. Yeah. But the second you try to go down a tile or to the left, that is not... It's not going the opposite way. Well, I guess it's getting stuck in an infinite loop, maybe? Because this never happens. Like, we never break out, is the problem of these loops. And maybe that's part of the reason why he backs this all off.
Where we're saying we're viewing this screen, which is a certain,
Can we name our dude +1 for Dennis? Well, we're not going to name him. You can't name him after yourself. You can't nominate a naming and then suggest your own name. So no, somebody else has to nominate your name. But I mean, he's clearly the Odinmade hero. But even that is not appropriate because it's Casey's asset that his artist generated for this series. And so if we are actually going to give it a name that isn't Handmade Hero, it has to be our own asset that I either sloppily draw with pixel art myself at some point or commission some other artist, to do it. Devil said, I mean, I can, you just have the power to say no. Yeah, I do. And I'm, as the orchestrator of this stream, I am telling you no, you can't do that. But I mean, he's clearly got to be the Odin-made hero, but even I can't do that. Yeah. It's all Casey's art that he had his artist that he works with for his company produce, right? And I paid for the game, right? So I have access to the assets, but I'm sure as heck not going to turn around and start using them. You know what I mean? Are the trees his too? All of the assets, every single asset that he uses in the series are assets that he didn't commission his artist to use them. His artist is also an employee of the company that he runs, I think. Actually, not that these details are super important, but okay. Let's get back on topic here and try and understand why this is happening. Because why can't we subtract 1? Like, we can, it's only when we try to go off the tile to the left. Well, I'm just going to let Casey get through this, because maybe this is all just going to be wasted effort in the end. And he's about to back all this off, and we don't have to think about it, at least not right now. It's an interesting problem to think about, and I think that's why he's getting hung up on it a bit. But because it produces all of these other issues that you have to think about that you wouldn't if you didn't have a world that wraps in this manner, then it takes away from all of the other things that you have to deal with, or at least makes it harder to deal with.
Dimension that we wanted for playability, which is 17 by 9 or something like this, right? I don't remember what we actually said it was. 17 by 9. So for a 17 by 9 screen, like those numbers don't go into 4 billion and some odd, right? The actual 2 to the 32nd, right? 2 to the 32nd. That number of tiles isn't evenly divisible by 17 or 9. So when we do our wrapping, right, we would not be able to put a screen right there, right? So at the wraparound point, you'd get a screen that was like misaligned, or you'd get, you'd get something that was sort of going to be half off, like that, and you'd see part of the top part of the world, which kind of breaks what we would want to do, right? And so, so really, if you want to handle that properly, you do have to always do it so that you kind of know, right, what the actual places are in your game and what constitutes a screen, and you always have to actually use some additional information if you want to do it this way. I wonder if this just means that wrapping is a big no, and we don't want to do that, right? It could mean that we just would encounter all kinds of problems like this, where we thought something would work okay, but then it turns out that when it's on the edge, it won't. You know what I mean? So I wonder if we want to say we always start like right in the middle, and we never let the worlds wrap around to the other side. So instead of being toroidal topology, right, we say no, we're going to have disk topology, right? I don't know. It's a good question, but it seems like if nothing else, the fact that you can't do the screens evenly means that you could never actually, if you wanted all 17 by 9 screens, you would never actually be able to make it go the full way. So like at the very least, you'd think what we would want to do is say, okay, it's not 4 billion around anyway. We'd want to do like whatever the closest multiple of 17 was to 4 billion, right? Without going over. So it just seems to me, I mean, just thinking through that, it just feels wrong. Like it feels like, all right, if we can't have that work out in a clean way, then maybe we just disallow it. It's like, forget it. You're not allowed to do that. We have some way that we set the initial place where screens start is in the middle somewhere, and wrapping is just not allowed. I think I might just go ahead and say that for now, because it really just feels like it's going to introduce bugs, and we don't get much out of it. We only just did that because it was like, oh hey, we don't have to, why not, right, was kind of the reason to do it at the time. And it seems like it's just more trouble than it's worth at that point, right? Because you get a bunch of stuff that would have been much easier to write that is now not. So, okay, I think I'm going to say that. I think I'm just going to ixnay it right now and say we're not going to allow the wrapping to happen. We're only going to say that we have to start in the middle and go from there. So I believe...
So I didn't know that was going to happen today, but it looks like it is. And I'd at least like to be able to... I'm guessing the reason why I can't do this the way he's doing it is simply because it's, allowed in C and C++, but in Odin, it's creating this situation where we can never get to the end tile in this loop, and so then we're just trapped. It does seem weird, though. Because if that is the bug, I guess it's not what I would expect. I would expect to be able to subtract 1 from a U32 just fine and not have these issues, but yeah. It's a bit of a weird one, and it makes sense why he backs it off. And maybe this is why a lot of games don't do the toroidal map wrapping thing, because it's not like an interesting thing really from a gameplay perspective. Like, what is it really going to add to your game that makes it worth the hassle of figuring out how to implement? I don't know.
Screen X and screen Y, are our initial values. So we would set screen...
Like, if you really wanted to wrap the player around, you could maybe do and maybe if it was like a small level or something, where like you go through a tunnel and it just kind of teleports you to the other side. Like, there would be other ways of implementing that don't involve having the actual... like, you would just change their position to go back to the beginning. So why would you go through the effort of dealing with all this other stuff with wrapping, using the way the math works out when you're calculating the world position? Yeah, especially if the world is as big as it seems in this game. Yeah, it's particularly pointless in this game. I'm thinking more of like, you know, if it was a small like multiplayer map for like an FPS game, for example. That was the example I had in my head. And like if you wanted the level to wrap, you would just have like teleports, basically, right? Where like, I guess the way that you would have to go through like a tunnel, right? That's like pitch black, and then it would teleport you. It would be probably more interesting if it wrapped like going through a tunnel and it actually brought you back out to the other, like you could see the other side. Like if you looked in front of you, you could see the players in the map behind you that are doing things that if you just turned around, you know, if that makes any sense. I want to think more about this, but I also just don't want to waste more time thinking about it. It's tough. Yeah, there's a lot going on. A lot to think about.
Screen X and screen Y to be like int 32 max over 2 and int 32 max over 2, like so, right?
Okay, let's go ahead and do that then. So this is going to be, I think abs tile Z is still going to be 0. Yeah, so we will just, I don't know, knock this down, and then both of these, is it like math int, what does it look like in Odin? Back to the docs. And that is in C and libc. I would have thought there's a different way that doesn't involve either of those to get at this number. So I'm going to go back onto the Discord real quick and see if I can figure that out. Is it just a constant? Yeah, no, it looks like that's coming off of libc. Or the C package. No, that actually is different. I remember seeing like int max stuff on the RAND package, but of course that's just, you know, saying give me a random, you can use these to get a random integer that is at most, you know, N63 max, or maybe it is N64. I don't know exactly, but this is not doing quite what I suppose I would have thought. Yeah, if only I could, like... No way, is that a thing? Is this a thing? I can just do this? Kind of seems like I can. But I want it to be an int, so can I do that? No, either way you have to cast it, which I guess makes sense. So I'm just going to do this, because why not? Then I don't have to do another import. Unless that causes some random assert to trip, and that was in tile. It's probably because we haven't added tiles there yet. Yeah. And at this point, I wonder if he'll go ahead and implement that. Yeah. Like Mr. Intrinsic said. I hadn't seen your comment yet, but this totally does work, and that's awesome. So we can move on.
And so that way we would start off, and we have to adjust our tile map, our tile chunk indexing as well. So that's actually a good reason probably why we didn't do that initially. So if you remember, we have not implemented our sparse storage yet either, right? So our sparse storage for tile chunks was still going off of the fact that we just allocate a hard-coded array of those tile chunks at the beginning and go from there. So yeah, I don't know, maybe we'll have to, we'll do this as a to-do for when we actually implement full sparseness that can take any values in, which again, not something to do now, waiting for full sparseness. Okay. And then I'll say, okay, we'll just set this to something that's at least not going to wrap for the moment, and we'll leave it at that. Okay.
So we're going to go 16 screens in. Or across and up, I guess I should say.
For the moment, and we'll leave it at that. Okay, so back to where we were, now that we've at least looked at all these bugs that we have here. And I might, want to go ahead and, hold on a second. What's going on here? There we go. Put that back in. Okay. Wait a minute. I forgot there's another problem.
So many things are happening. So he changes this so that the walls come back. I think he just got rid of them all together. But I only got rid of the south wall. The problem is we haven't added in enough walls. That's, yeah. That's got to be it. Mr. Intrinsic says, that hints that max type for any type might work. You used I32 as type, but it complained and you needed the cast. So I was thinking, can we just do max int directly? Well, if you're talking about, you might be talking about for a different... The problem is we want it to be the max size of an I32. And it's complaining about wanting the cast. It's because I need the results of the half of the max value of a signed int32. But I just need it as an int so that it plays nicely with the rest of those types, if I'm understanding you correctly. Because I don't want max int, because that's going to be an int64. And if I take half of whatever that max value is, that's actually going to be the max. Yeah. Yeah. Cool, cool, cool.
There we go. Put that back in. Okay. Wait a minute. I forgot there's another problem. If I start you off on 1616, then players have to be initialized to be where that actually is.
Well, that isn't the problem. Oh, yeah, yeah. No, that is the problem. So actually, I had this wrong. It's not that there aren't any walls over there, right? Because we start adding the walls. Yeah, that's where this is. So we just didn't. Yeah, it's exactly what he said. Okay.
You know what I should probably do too? When we actually drop a player down, when I initialize player, I should probably put them somewhere where the camera can see them, right? That would make sense, right? Because we have a camera feed. right? And so what I should probably do is make the camera P start out to be looking at the first place in the world, and then make sure I put the players down near wherever that camera P is. Or I guess I could do it vice versa. But either way, I would probably want to say, okay, if we're going to start the world off there, we want to have a place for the player to start off as well. So we'll do, let's see, 16 by 16. And you know what? I guess even this is kind of not really all that necessary quite yet, because if I was just to leave it at this, as long as I put those walls back in, we're actually fine, right? The only actual problem was because we were glitching through that wall, because we never generate anything that can go in that direction either. All right, so let's get back to the collision detection thing, because we've got so many things that we want to do here. It's like going to be nice.
So he's just going to leave those as 0, which simplifies having to figure this out.
In that direction either. All right, so let's get back to the collision detection thing, because we've got so many things that we want to do here. It's like
so he doesn't go back. Go back.
Be nice. We kind of want to start
or go down
through those. So I just don't want to go chasing down a bunch of these things that are bugs that are only because we're sort of at the point where we're just kind of defining.
Okay, so clearly something. Well, again, it could still be the same issue that I've been talking about, where the wrapping is messed up because I can't go down and then I get stuck. Oh no, no. It's almost like you'd want abs tile X and Y to be cast to an int. Then you do the math and then cast it back. And then maybe I would at least be working where he's at. But I think he's going to rip all that code anyway. So it just seems like pointless effort.
Engine stuff. It's much easier to fit through this door now that we're only a point. It's kind of a shame to ruin that in a second, but that's what we're going to do. All right, so basically what I wanted to do today was just start talking about how to make our collision detection wider. It does look, by the way, that like that glitching through the wall is almost impossible to do now, even though I still think it should be possible. I guess it's just much harder. Yeah, I don't know why that's going on. I don't know why that's not going on, I should say. Suddenly we got robust collision detection. It's not, I'm pretty sure it's not actually robust, but what can I say? So fixing that typo in terms of recanonicalizing was actually most of the problem, it would appear, for being able to phase through the wall at all. And without that, it doesn't look like you can really do it anymore. So, oh well, not as much motivation. But even so, we still have a good reason why we want to talk about what I was going to talk about today. We really still have 2 good reasons, right? How much time I got left? What's going on here? No, I got no time left. Well, okay, I can still do some of it. So let's do a little bit of it. Too many weird bugs and stuff to look through today. It was not a good day for streaming new stuff, but you know, sometimes you got to go through cleanup sorts of things. All right, so what I wanted to talk about today was just how to start making the collision detection better by looking at the guy as more of an area rather than a point. And of course, we still, you can see the effects of that already, which is because he can interpenetrate this wall like that, right? And we want to kind of fix that. And then we're going to do the stuff where we actually allow him to glide as well, which is sort of one of the other reasons that we want to do collision detection stuff. So what can we do, right? What I want to talk about was what can we do to get it so that he's not sticking in that wall. And I guess if we only have 12 minutes left, one thing I could do is just save that for tomorrow. I'm trying to think if there's other bugs, since today was almost an entirely debugging day. I'm trying to think if there's other buggy sorts of things that we would want to do, so I could just introduce it and code it tomorrow, since it's very straightforward what we actually want to do as well. And I don't know, what are some of the other bugs that we had? I could look for some of our to-dos and just see if any of them were there. So maybe I'll do that. Since this was the thing that caused us the real problem, maybe I'll fix that canonicalization thing. So maybe what I'll do is say, okay, what I want to do that was a pretty bad bug that we had, and I want to make it so that we're unlikely to have that bug. So what I'd like to do.
Well, damn, he is not going to tear this code up right now and make it so that we're not adding signed integers to unsigned integers, and so I'm gonna have to have some kind of workaround just so I'm in a better working state heading into the next day's stream. How do I want to do that? I could start off by saying, don't make this. Well, if I just iterate over the range, isn't that enough? Like, won't Odin just do that for me? Maybe I've been overthinking this whole time. Let's just try it real quick and see. So we, just start off at start tile Y, go all the way to end tile Y. 4 ranges are not allowed for U32s, I think is what that's about to tell me. Oh, well, it's because, okay. So let's say it's equal to end tile Y. Oh my God, this might just solve the whole problem right here. Why didn't I think of that sooner? What am I doing here? Let's make sure I have like a starting point. Of course, now I got 2 starting points. I've got 2 messed up loops here that don't look or do what we want them to do, but that's okay. And this needs to be all X's. Does that solve our problem? Cannot assign to this. Well, that's fine. We just don't need to do this now. It's embarrassing that I didn't think of that sooner. And delta X and Y are no longer necessary. So yeah, this would... I wonder if this would just fix the wrapping problem straight up, because Odin's just going to figure this out for me. Actually, no, because the range can only go... Oh, no, it works! Maybe. Nope. Something's messed up here. So I'm not getting stuck. Yeah. That ain't right. So it'll let me go down into that. Well, you know what? It's probably because I'm doing that last iteration and I shouldn't. And that's what's getting me stuck in that wall. Where was I? Get rid of that. Because we don't, yeah, that makes perfect sense. We do it at the end of the loop, so we don't want to be inclusive here. Yeah. So this is something, I was like browbeaten into not doing this sort of thing with Zig's 4 ranges. You couldn't do something like this. And maybe that's just why I didn't bother to try it sooner. But that just kind of alleviates that whole concern of having to figure this out, right? And I guess I left that in there. And so now maybe the wrapping would kind of work. No, that's still wrong. What? This is actually... I don't need this at all, right? If this is doing... I guess less than is not right. Because... Or isn't it? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, this is wrong. That's all wrong. I've done a very bad thing here. Yeah, no. I don't know. Maybe it should be entile. Maybe it should be 1 pass now, actually. I thought I was getting stuck. Well, I guess I'm getting stuck on the top and the right. It's just wrapping back that is messed up and not doing what it should be doing. But do I care? Because this is not code that's going to stick around. But this at least lets me walk around the whole room before getting stuck. I guess I would want to think about how I could write this to make it so that we actually hit that wall properly. So we make this +1 like it was before, right? 1 pass entile X and Y. Nope. At this point, I'm just trying random stuff to see if that gives me the behavior I'm looking for. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think I care. Because this is all going to change. And I think this basically does... This is closer to what Casey's code is doing now, even if it's still not quite right. I guess the other thing I could do is just go back to the old loop that was using this code. But it just seems pointless. Walking around is good. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely better than where we were at before, right? Before I couldn't go left and I couldn't go down, but now, like, it's letting me go one tile past where I should be able to go. And if I think about this just for a minute, we're going up and to the right. It works fine, but it's the case where this is walking backwards. And then checking to see if we're colliding with either a wall on the left or to the south, that it incorrectly finds no wall there. And then we go into the wall and we're trapped and we can't get out. And I guess I feel like I just want to try this. But rename these to be, that's what I'll do. Because if we take the maximum value between these two, and the new player position is trying to go to the left, yeah, no, it seems like it, I guess the iteration is never, yeah, in here, the T-min would become 0 as we hit the wall. So the iterations we're doing inside of this nested loop here are never properly getting at the tile value that pulls out the wall that's either to the left or to the south. And so if we take the max of these two, because the new player position could be to the left or to the south, it's actually going to give us the old player position and say that's the maximum. But then we add 1 to it to be inclusive. I don't know. I don't know that I'm necessarily thinking about this correctly, but maybe this will help us. Nope. We still get stuck in here. but do we still get stuck on the top? Yeah, that still works, right? So I don't know. Maybe I'll experiment with this after the stream is done, and think more about it, because that does simplify that loop structure quite a bit. I can actually follow what's going on a bit more intuitively, and so maybe you could solve that problem, at least with the collision detection for, you know, the wrapping in this case, but it wouldn't solve all these other problems with like the camera. And then, like you were saying, if the screen dimensions don't line up with the dimensions of the entire world, then you start getting into all these wacky problems, and who knows where those problems will end with all the different stuff you have to think about structuring the world this way. So this will be good for now, and then we'll just follow Casey along to get the, I think what he does is he like bakes in the, whoops, didn't need to do that. He bakes in this step so that he can't have a case like this. It'll be like update position or something that we need to do to wrap that in the right order. Let's find out.
Is go ahead and say this offset parameter, maybe we just don't want that to be something that gets modified very often without being able to recanonicalize after. Now, it's not necessarily the case that we want to prevent it from always doing that, but we just, in general, we'd like to go ahead and say that we're going to recanonicalize that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and introduce a function that does the change and the recanonicalize together. So I'm basically going to say, okay, you know, offset, I'm going to say we've got tile map position here, like so. I'm going to say that we have offset tile map position. Or maybe I'll just do offset, and we'll pass in the source value, right? So this is the pose. And p.offset will plus equal to whatever the offset is that you want to pass in, and you pass in that offset, right? And that's really all I'm talking about here, something that's going to do that. And then we'll recanonicalize. Where did I actually get that recanonicalize from? Recanonicalize position, this guy. So we'll do that, and I guess it needs the tile map as well. Because of course it needs to know how big the tile side is in meters. So this is what we will actually be doing. There we go. When we want to offset one of these tile map position p's, and that'll just return the new one. So we've got the new one here. Well, I guess we can just return the old one. Return p, like so. So that would basically just be a little inline function that just does the two operations that we were doing manually before, and that would allow us to not make that mistake, because then we'll just use that when we offset things. And so what I can do is just sort of make a note to myself.
He's too fast in his 1.5 times speed here. So I need to catch up. This needs to be a pointer. And then I think we're good.
Here, sometimes I'll do this and say, okay, let's take a look at the people who actually should be doing stuff with this. Let's go ahead and make that happen there. And this is kind of, so I've talked before about how I don't like private. So this tends to be what I do instead of private. If I have, it tends to be like a note to myself that this is not something that I should be updating very often, right? This is like the most that I'll usually do, is I'll do something to make it so that it's like, oh, it's got a marker on it, right? So that now I know, but anyone who wants to do shenanigans with it still can. I just want them to know that, okay, just make sure that you're aware of it. And
Well, I'm not sure how I feel about doing that. Basically what he's talking about is suffixing the tile map position's offset vector here into the tile that we're on in the tile map, and just basically pseudo-privating it. I wonder if you can have a private member in Odin. Probably not, is my guess. Yeah, that's just all kinds of wrong. And that's fine. I mean, I think I'd sooner prefix it myself. I think that's what Python does. Maybe it's like a double underscore for private stuff in Python. And what I'm used to doing in Elixir, this doesn't have anything to do with private, but in Elixir, I mean, if I was going to private a function, I would say def p, define private function. But in Elixir, another thing that happens a lot is when you're pattern matching on something, you know, I might want to explode a map, you know, because I've got some params, and there might be, you know, some X attribute in this map, and then there's a value in there, and it's a string for whatever reason, or maybe it's a number. And then, it, you know, this is in the body of my cool function. And then I do some stuff, right? Jamming some Elixir into this Odin code, which is, you know, not highlighting things anywhere near the way it should look, but you get the idea. If I just wanted to be able to say this function takes my map and I want to pull stuff out of it in this case, because this is basically making the function conditional, but I don't care about params at that point, then I would prefix it with an underscore. But that's not really the same thing. But what it does mean is that if you do prefix this, I can't do anything with it. If I tried to access params in the body of my function, right, to do whatever, let's say I wanted to inspect it, that would not compile, I'm pretty sure. You'd have to do this. So I'm used to more of like the prefixed underscore marking something as private, but you know, this is a Caseyism. It's not really formal or anything, and I'll just do things the way he's doing them for consistency's sake. Just cut down on the confusion wherever I can. So this is just gonna blow everything up. And now we gotta, well, that's not very private. Well, he's about to make this private. Yeah, in fact, I guess I'll go ahead and call offset new player P, and I think that is not a pointer. So we gotta take the reference, and then this is the offset that we're calculating. So that would remove the need for this, and now he won't have that bug again, and we will never have it either. Python does underscore, double underscore prefixes and suffixes for special functions. Well, it's not like a formal thing that I've seen in Python. It's more like a style thing, if I remember right. At least the last time I looked at Python style guide stuff, it was something like, you know, if I've got if I define my function and it takes, you know, some parameter A, if I did this and it was like, say, a member function or something, that would mean that you intend for nobody to use it. And I think I've tried like running code actually like use this, and the interpreter barked at me one time, but I could be misremembering it. The last time I thought about any of this stuff was probably over a year ago, in Python, that is. C and C++ reserves some names that begin with underscore. Okay, well that makes sense. It's not strictly a Caseyism then. And that, yeah, when I think about it, I think I've seen exactly that, right? Like, doesn't he actually do like this and call the rotate left intrinsic like this? Maybe there's some other aspect of that call. But yeah, now that you mention that, not a Caseyism. That's just how he kind of does it, because you know, the prefixed underscore is seen elsewhere. And that makes sense why I wouldn't know that, because I haven't spent nearly as much time with C and C++ as I have with Elixir or Python. Anyway, tangents aside, can I assign this, because does this bring back not a pointer? Huh. What does he do then? Does he dereference the result?
I'll put a note in there in a second that says what's going to happen there. This needs to take a tile map, obviously.
Oh, that takes 2 parameters? It does. That's what it's complaining about. But of course, this is still a problem. Oh, whoops. This should be like that then, maybe? This still isn't right. Oh yeah, that's a different spot. What was that, line 947? Was it 927? Yeah. So this is going to cause us to access that way, which I don't like. The compiler defines underscore rotate left. The compiler is allowed to break the rules. Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You would guess. I would guess the same. That makes sense to me. Back to tile. We'll just clear up all of these errors as we see them, like he's doing. That is also in the main file. It's not super private if we're doing a bunch of manipulation with it everywhere. But actually over here, and he's already gonna probably do this, but I'll just jump ahead because why not? New player P and then player delta. Right, so that's a position we would be at if we didn't, you know, detect something to collide at in between this place and what is this complaining about? Oh, this needs to be a pointer. In between where we would be if we went the whole distance, right? This whole player delta. And then we don't need to do either of those. Yeah. And then this is after we get that team in out. So all of this goes away. And I'll actually just keep working through these.
That should be...
Before I let him continue. It's also a nice exercise to prove that I kind of know what I'm doing when I can work ahead in simple stuff like this. Why is that not right? Because that's also in the main file. No, it's not. 254 is right here. Oh, no return values expected. Well, that is a problem, isn't it? Split that up. And say that return, well, it shouldn't return anything. No, it should return something. Okay, whoops. Why would it return something? Does he create a result off of that? Like a new result? Oh, it's because he doesn't make it a pointer. So when he goes to recanonicalize it, he's going to have to dereference it. Because this does take a pointer, right? No, it doesn't. I don't understand why I did that the way I did that. How did I get to this place? Maybe I don't actually have a clue what I'm doing. Oh, because it's a procedure parameter. Okay, yeah, now I know. So we could just create a result. In fact, that might be just what I prefer to do. And then say that all of this stuff works off of the results. Well, like that, right? It's still not quite right. I think we just do this. That's fine. Okay, moving on. What else? Most of this is going to be in main, I guess. And this is going to have to... Well, I can just do this. And this doesn't take a pointer anymore. And then this is just going to update that new player P, and then I think we're good. Right? Because that's what that was assigning to before, I'm pretty sure. Why am I changing the entity P offset? Where was that? Oh, yeah, there you go. Oh no. Well, I did something wrong. Something went terribly wrong. But it sure looks like just back this off here so I can see what this is actually doing before. Go into tile here. So I shouldn't do this. I should do this. Go into tile. We look at this. We say our result is just going to be our position. Oh, that is why. Right there, I think. We're recanonicalizing off of the old position's offset. Forgot to change that. Okay. Now I think we're okay. Well, we're kind of okay. We're still going to have that same issue with... No, we're not. We're not okay at all. How could this happen?
That should be everything, tile map position, and then we just do this, right, tile map, and then we don't have to do recanonicalize anymore. So basically all of these guys are fine, but of course they would look like this. But we could probably get rid of them as well since we're not really using that anymore. So we've got the offset in there, and this guy will be the same, so that's a new player P equals offset, the old player P with that, so that's already much nicer to look at as well, so there we go. And that will just look like that. In fact, we don't...
Oh, I updated the wrong position. This is the old player position. Now I think we're good. Duh. Nope, still not good. It's just one... well... What? Yeah. Okay, yeah. This is... Jeez. Now we're good? Yeah, because, yeah. Well, we'll see. I'm not going to get excited yet, because we're still not working. Still doing something wrong here. What the hell? It seems like such a simple change. Why would that break us so bad that we can't move anywhere? We made Beyblade Simulator. That actually kind of seems like a fun thing to work on, to be honest.
Don't even need to have new player P in there at all now, I don't think. Because new player P even...
Yeah, I guess I thought, that's what I thought. But, yeah, when we go to actually update the player's, position, the stored entities position, it should be working off the old player P, and then tmin times player delta, the tmin that we found, doing the collision detection to make sure we're not clipping past any walls. This all looks right. So why isn't it right? Look at this proc one more time. We pass in that tile map and the tile map position that we want to work off of. Change the offset. Fool! I should be whipped through the streets. Now we're good. Whoa, what? That was kind of weird. It looked like I briefly collided with that south wall. Nope. But now we're back to where we should be. Jeez.
Used? It's not. So that's fine. Okay. So these guys who are actually accessing the values, that's totally fine, because they're the rendering code, so that's fine. So now we should be good to go, and or not. What? Wow, today is a horrible day. This is like the worst day I've had on the stream, I think, ever. Nothing has gone right for me. It's been awful the entire time. What did I do to deserve this? So what did I do? That's what I did. Yeah. So again, I probably just shouldn't even write that. That's just a stupid way to write that, and that's part of the reason why I deserve that stupidity. So there we go. So basically now I just have it so, okay, everyone now just does their offsets directly.
That's right. I didn't even see that myself. I mean, I remembered to assign... Oh, no, I did do... Oh. Bad. I was doing the thing that I thought I was doing, but it just looked a little bit different because... This is actually a lot easier to follow now, but it looked a little bit different because of the way I'd organized code going back yesterday or even the day before. So now I think we're just fine. I mean, he had a bug that, what was his problem? Basically, he didn't do this right. And he already had new player P declared. Okay, now I understand why he was seeing that.
And in theory, that'll make it a little bit easier to avoid having problems. There's still another thing that I would really like to do. The thing that I want to get to eventually, and so I'm hoping that as we kind of round out how we're doing stuff over the next couple weeks and finally go, okay, this is how everything's going to work, I'd like to get to the point, I mean, the thing that I've been thinking about lately, basically, is just that I'd like to get to the point where we don't have all these crazy position things happening anyway, because what I wanted to have happen eventually, I'm just not exactly sure how we're going to get there quite yet. What I really want to have happen, right, is I want to have it so that when you're on the area of the screen, everyone is just in regular float space. And then everyone who's off screen is in their tile map positions. And when you move onto the screen, right, you become a floating point coordinate relative to like the center of the screen or something, right? That's what I really want to get to. Because my intention is I don't really want to be using those tile map coordinates at all eventually. Like my goal eventually was to figure out a way to make it so that we always map everyone into the float space, do all the game there, and then when things leave the screen and have to persist that aren't relative to the screen, then they go into some kind of cold storage where they're just in tile map coordinates. That's my goal. I'm just not quite sure exactly how we're going to get there yet. But I want to, as soon as we do like some more of the stuff, I'm feeling like I can probably just make that happen. All right. So we're okay now. We're back to dude being at parity, and we accidentally improved our collision detector quite a bit by fixing a bug, which was not my intention, but there we go. And we sort of decided that we don't think wrapping is going to be such a good idea. Now I don't know. It's possible that really those were the only things we had to fix for wrapping, but I just feel like we'll end up with tons of problems that are happening if we allow that wrapping to continue that we just don't want to have happen. So we may just try to always make it so that you never wrap around, you never actually use the toroidal thing. For all intents and purposes, it doesn't exist. That is probably the best strategy to avoid sadness, but I don't actually know. So we'll just leave it at that. So anyway, not a very eventful Handmade Hero, mostly just a bunch of garbage that had to get cleaned out, and that's fine. That has to happen periodically. But tomorrow we'll do the thing that I wanted to do today, which is just make the collision detector properly handle dilated things, basically, so that you can sort of do the guy can be a shape and the wall can be a shape and we'll intersect them together, which is what I wanted to do, but was not going to happen. What we can also do is somebody was suggesting perhaps there would be a way to set the default, inside the settings, there would be a default way to set these colors. I don't know if that's actually true, but I will take a real quick look to see if that actually is true. Color management, no, probably not color management, huh? Color selector settings, shade selector color patches. I could make them color patches, I suppose. I just want there to be some kind of a default. What's your default canvas border? Doesn't help. Yeah, it doesn't look likely. So I think we're kind of, we're not in good shape there. We're not in good shape, but what are you gonna do? What are you going to do? Okay. So I don't imagine there'll be a whole lot of questions, but I will go to Q&A anyway. Maybe.
So I am going to cut Casey off there because I have no time to listen in on the Q&A. But yeah, I think what I'm going to do here is spend some time figuring out if I can get this math to work so that we can use these ranged for loops. I don't know why I didn't, like I was looking at that and trying to think about how that would work. Because it clearly does kind of work. It's just that we don't end on the right tile because and therefore we never check to see if we're colliding properly. So that T-min never gets reduced, which forces us to get stuck in these walls. And I should just be happy that I understand what the issue is, even if I don't know what the solve is yet. So actually not as much new code written this stream as I would have thought. And we still haven't even taken out the toroidal stuff, but I guess that's what we'll do tomorrow. Yeah, we got to get that math to math right. We got to learn us some math and learn it good. I did see some notifications pop in, and I do have my notifications turned off. I wonder if I just unhide if it'll turn on. Well, you know what? I'd have to like turn the sounds back on. Like what I want is an easy way to turn them on for the end of the stream so I can show my appreciation for those of you who are following and subbing. Or at least like play them manually. It's not that I don't appreciate it. It's just I get distracted enough for whatever reason, right? And so therefore I don't want that many more distractions and people will do it on purpose, you know, because you want to have your fun. I get it. I'm on the wrong thing. How do I bring up, what is it? Stream Labs. There's so many different, I've got Restream, I've got Stream Elements, I've got Stream Labs. It never ends with these streaming tangential things. This is the wrong window. I didn't want to do this in this window. Come on, Firefox, figure it out. There we go. So my alert box, everything is turned off. So therefore, it's probably been playing, but it's been playing silently, and you can't see it because it was hidden. But now if I come back here to my dashboard, apparently I'm already on my dashboard. I feel like an old man. Recent events. There we go. So does that work? It does. I need to fix that notification. Bosscans, thanks for the follow. And Russ L. Thank you for the... Actually, I'm not hearing... I must have turned off the individual subscription volume to... Yeah, there it is. So Ross L, thank you for the follow as well. Or the subscription, rather. Unbelievable. Come on now. Figure it out. There it goes. So Russ, thanks for the sub there. And Nutella, thank you as well for 21 months. Oh, I replayed that on the wrong. See, I've got stream elements in Streamlabs. Wait a minute. No, I did replay that on the right place. Is it because it's a tier 1 sub? I don't understand why that sub notification looks different. So anyway, thanks to all of you. And thanks to those of you who've been hanging out with me on the stream, watching me figure this out one line of code at a time. Yeah, hopefully I'll have a good explanation for this business tomorrow. And then maybe like I can actually test to see if the wrapping would have worked, even though we plan to tear it out. I don't know, just for my own education, I'm like really curious to see if I can get this to work properly and collide with those walls going in the other direction. So I'll see you tomorrow, or not, but if I do, I'll see you. And if not, have a good weekend, and I'll see you just whenever you come by the stream again. I don't know.